I'm Leon Todd for G66. Welcome to another Tuesday Tone Tip. On last week's video, we looked at some classic Marshall tones. What I want to do today is flip that around, and we're actually going to look at a couple of models of modern Fender amplifiers in the Axe-Fx 3. We're going to start out with this Vibra King model based on the Fender Vibra King, which was a combo released in the 90s. It had three 10-inch speakers in it, and there is an IR of that very speaker cabinet in here. You can see this legacy cab number 98 3x10 Vibrato King mix. So I've just set the low cut in that at 80 Hertz, the high cut at 12K, and dialed up the Vibra King at stock settings. We're going to hear it starting on the bridge pickup of my Strat. I've got a little bit of this Recording Studio C reverb over here, and I'm just going to let you hear this at stock settings. I'll flick over to the neck pickup, and it will give you a good idea of the general character of this amp. It's something that to my ears is instantly recognizable as a kind of Fender-y guitar tone, but it's got its own thing going on compared to some of the vintage 60s Fender models in here. And we'll talk about why and how you can use that. So bridge pickup. That's a pretty awesome, organic sounding, gritty edge of breakup tone on there. There is that recognizable Fender-Sparkle in there. There's a little bit of grit and a little bit of chime. The thing that differentiates the Vibra King from some of the more vintage Fender amp models, we can go to the preamp tab and see that the tone stack on this particular amp model is placed in the post location. So it's after the main gain stages, which is how something like, I guess, a Marshall style amp might work on there, as opposed to the kind of classic pre-gain tone stack on a Fender, where you use these controls to essentially like change the texture of the gain, you know. And in cases like that, you have to be really careful with how much bass you put in with various guitars. Here, you can set all of that pretty much neutral, and you have a pretty lovely tone to begin with. So for this particular guitar, I always kind of dial in my Strat on the neck pickup. So I would just shave off a little bit of bass here with this and maybe boost a little bit of mid-range. This will give me this. Great for a whole bunch of different styles right there with very little tweaking, which I certainly enjoy. This particular model really takes drives well. I'll give you a couple of different examples. We'll start off not with the hotcake, but with the VS9 valve screamer, so based on a tube screamer kind of thing. You kind of know what this is going to do, right? Let's hear it with the griddle cake now. This is more of the kind of distortion, almost fuzz territory. We will hear it with a fuzz in a second. Vibra King Fat mode is also modeled on here. If you like more of your kind of distortion texture to come from the amp rather than a drive, I think you'll prefer this particular channel. You can see I've got the gain up at 7. I've backed off some bass and boosted the mid-range and treble even more. This to me gives you that instant sort of 90s Americana, like, you know, trying to revive the 60s kind of vibe on there, which is funny because I guess the 60s was as far away from the 90s as the 90s is to now. Let that one sink in for a minute. I really like the character of the distortion tone in there. It's got that identifiable Fender thing, but it's almost like there's some kind of Vox DNA in there and a little bit of Marshall DNA in there with the way it just kind of cracks. I think it's very unique for a Fender model. We'll move along to another modern Fender amplifier, and this is one that I've actually gigged with a lot in the past. It is based on the Fender Blues Junior. You've got the kind of standard mode and the fat mode modeled in here. I like the standard mode for a kind of similar reason to the reason that I like the Vibra King standard mode, where you almost have to do nothing and you just have a really lovely platform for your tone. I think the Vibra King has kind of more character and grit, whereas the Blues Junior is a little bit more neutral. Some may say kind of vanilla and boring, but I like that if you're going to hit it with pedals. So I've just turned the mids up a little bit, back the bass off. This is a really, really lovely clean sound. Pop a compressor and a phaser in front of that, you've pretty much got an instant funk tone. Now we're onto the Blues Junior Fat. This is the one I've been waiting for because I kind of want to replicate what I used to do when I gigged a Blues Junior. I would use 2 tube screamers and I would set one as a very subtle boost, and then I would use the other tube screamer for my solo tones on there. So if I had both off, I had this kind of raw rock and roll sound that you get by turning the gain and master volume up on this. That cleans up really nicely. What we could do is go to the preamp tab here and set the boost type to be T808. So when I kick this in, this would be more my just kind of everyday dirty rhythm tone. What I'll do next is I'll kick in the valve screamer in front of it for my lead sound. back a lot of good memories for me using that setup that a lot of people used to look at and go, why do you have two tube screamers? And it was because of that particular sound. So if you're looking for that kind of core Fender character, but you want to do something just a little bit different. You know, you don't want to use the Twin or the Deluxe Reverb or the Tweed Deluxe model or the Bassman. You want that character, but you kind of want to make it your own. Try either of these two models in here. I would say the Vibra King probably has a little bit more of that Fender-Mojo about it, where you hear it and you instantly recognize that, yeah, that's a Fender style amp in there. It also takes humbuckers pretty well. And if you combine it with, say, a Greenback IR, you could get a pretty cool Marshall style tone. The Blues Junior is maybe a little bit more neutral sounding, and it's a pretty good platform, like I said, for drives or for using different guitars and playing with the volume control on there. I would probably go for that one if I just needed a really, really kind of plain, clean sound that needed to fit around a whole bunch of other instruments. If I was playing more in like a rock trio or doing a blues thing, I would go for the Vibra King. That's just me anyway. Let me know your thoughts. I would highly encourage you to play around not only with these amp models, but this excellent sounding Legacy IR, this 3x10 Vibrato King mix, I think works great with just about any Fender amp model. And if you've got requests for future Tuesday Tone Tips, simply put them in the comments section below. Thanks so much for watching as always, and I will see you next time. Cheers.